Hey guys, welcome to Classified Live. Hope you had a good weekend. A lot to talk about. Unfortunately, we've got to start with this tragic shooting in Jacksonville, Florida. Really, really bad stuff. And I want to talk a lot about that this morning. Also going to talk about Senator John McCain. And the President of the United States getting a lot of flack for not giving John McCain personal accolades. President put out what I thought was a very appropriate and professional and respectful statement to the McCain family. President didn't put out heaping praise on John McCain. John McCain really didn't like the president very much. President didn't like John McCain very much. And I also want to talk about the president's approval ratings in light of his bad week with Cohen and Manafort. It might surprise you. But first, on to this Jacksonville shooting. I'm also trying to, you see me playing around with the keyboard here. I'm tweeting out the show because a lot of people don't get notifications. Hey, if you have not gotten a notification of the show via YouTube, via the Rebel, let me know. I want to make sure there are no issues. So if you could just throw in the chat box that you haven't, and good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see everybody coming in. But everybody here, if you haven't been notified about the show going live or about the show being on, do me a favor and put it on there. Okay, so some people are getting it. Okay, good. I want to make sure YouTube isn't messing with us. So good stuff. And then I want to tweet the show out a little bit more. This is going to be a lot to talk about here. I think a lot of people are going to get upset when they see just how ridiculous some of these calls from the left are. So, all right, we got this shooting in Jacksonville, terrible shooting in Jacksonville. And first thing the left does, right, is they're calling for what? Gun control. Bigwig says he never gets notification. Okay, good. You guys are getting notifications. Awesome. So, guy goes into, we know the story by now, video game tournament in Jacksonville. Guy goes into the game bar. It's a Madden tournament, NFL, football, video games. Pretty big one, apparently. Gamers from all over the world. One of the guys, I'm not going to say his name. I'm not giving killers any more attention. Sorry. He decides that because he loses the tournament, he snaps and he decides going to kill people. So he shoots two younger guys, a guy from West Virginia named Taylor Robertson, who left behind a wife and young child, and a younger guy from California, Eli Clayton. Robertson was 27 years old, Eli Clayton 22 years old. And you can see Eli Clayton in those videos that are out there. He's the young black guy in the red sweatshirt with the laser dot on his chest. This lunatic targeted him with a laser. And so, on the handgun. And that's where we'll begin to debunk the left's narrative. The guy used a handgun, all right, a common handgun. Now, that's not even the worst part of this for the left. And I hate politicizing this, but it's already been politicized. Immediately, I started seeing calls for more gun laws here in Florida. Well, it happened in Jacksonville, and Florida's gun laws are easy. And even after Parkland, nobody did anything about Florida's gun laws. It was all token. It was window dressing. Florida gun laws. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where the shooting took place. Doesn't matter that the tournament was in Jacksonville. The guy, the killer, drove down from Baltimore with the gun in his car. He drove down from Baltimore with the gun in his vehicle. All right. Maryland has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the United States outside of New York City and parts of California. This guy was just a nut. So all of these calls, when you're hearing the politicians and the left-wing media and the gun activists rant and rave about Florida's gun laws, they're lying to you. Florida's gun laws had nothing whatsoever to do with this tragedy. Nothing. The guy stuck a gun in his car in Maryland and drove to Florida, retrieved the gun from his vehicle, got back in into the game bar area where they were playing and started shooting people up. Now, Millennial Freelance Associates says lack of proper security protocol is a major issue. Yeah, it sounds good to say, but come on. We don't live in a police state. We're not going to clamp down and lock down with armed security a video game tournament. All right? A school, yes. But by this logic, we should have one-way access points to shopping malls and concert venues. We don't live that way. When you live that way, you let the savages win. When you live that way, you let the savages win. But going back, so again, this has nothing to do with gun laws. So then we got to look at what it has to do with. Well, what we know, information is limited at this point. But we know Pavo Inferno is a handgun. We don't know what kind of handgun was used yet. What we know is that from his parents' divorce records, this guy had what was described as extensive medical needs. We don't know if any of those were psychological. We probably won't, because here in the States, your medical records are among the most locked down records. HIPAA and other laws are very, very prohibitive when it comes to accessing medical records. All right. So it could very well be this guy had a history of psychological problems as a kid or physical problems that made him a bit of a nut as an adult. But again, those things might not have disqualified him from buying a firearm in Maryland, nor should they have. See, here's the thing. This is a tragic incident. Parkland was a tragic incident. But I know I'm going to get flamed for saying this by the left and the centrists, but you can't look at the number of victims. You got to look at the number of perpetrators. And between Parkland and this, two bad guys, you don't enact sweeping public policy that affects 330 million Americans because two bad guys jumped off and went savage. You don't do that. I'm not a fan of gun control because it doesn't work. Now everybody's saying, well, it's a gun-free zone. It was a gun-free zone. I get that. I get that tired old argument. We know gun-free zones don't work. We know bad guys ignore that. We know that. But it's also inconceivable that the gamers would have been armed. And even if they were, they had on headsets facing their consoles. Chances are they wouldn't have been able to react quickly enough. Would it have been great if there were some other armed people there, maybe people hanging out, people watching to stop this guy? Yes. Yes. Now, 2 deaths is a tragedy. But let's just be thankful it wasn't 22. But that's of little consolation to the families of Robertson and Clayton. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to them. Now, this guy's a bad guy. This guy came from a relatively upper middle class family. His dad worked for NASA. His mom is a very senior official at the Food and Drug Administration. But again, the conspiracy theorists are going to come out of the woodwork. It was a government plot. His dad wasn't with NASA. He was at the FBI, CIA, and his mom was at the FBI. No, all that craziness. No. He's just a guy who appears to have been a nut. But let's also look at a secondary possible cause. He was a millennial. He's 24 years old. That generation has been taught there's really no such thing as losing. You never actually lose. Everybody gets a participation trophy. Everybody gets a trophy. And if you lose, you go protest. You stamp your feet and you scream and yell. So this guy's been taught his entire life, because of the generational issues we have, that you don't lose. You don't have to be the best to win. That if you lose, you can throw a tantrum and you're supposed to get your way. But he didn't. Now, people at the tournaments are saying that have engaged with this guy, because apparently he's been on the tournament circuit for a while. He was a pretty good player. People are saying, he was a complete loner. He didn't want to talk to anybody. He wouldn't make friends with anybody. All right, the writing was on the wall. But again, we live in a free country. Just because you're a dick who doesn't want to talk to people, that does not pass the Second Amendment test to ban you or bar you from owning firearms. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. And so these things will happen. I don't mean to sound cavalier, but in a nation where you have civil liberties, where you care about individual rights, You're going to have tragedies when a person snaps. You're just going to. It is what it is. There's nothing you're ever going to do about that. Nothing. And it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a terribly tragic thing when this happens. But I'm talking about giving individual liberties to people that might be questionable. It's what we do. It's America. It's what we do. Now, the police are going to engage in a long investigation. I spoke to some people yesterday, including an FBI agent I know up in Jacksonville. The FBI was called in. It's a big crime scene, a process. 14 total shot, including the guy who killed himself, the bad guy. 2 dead, plus the bad guy dead. 11 others shot. You've got a very large crime scene to process in detail. So it was all hands on deck. All hands on deck. Now, there was a lot of video of the shooter, of what went on that day. And again, terribly, terribly tragic what happened here. They were competing in this tournament for a $5,000 prize. It was about what does it say here? $125,000 in prize money to be distributed out evenly. Now, luckily, other people, that were shot were just wounded. They were grazed. It's really a miracle by the grace of God. By the grace of God that these people were not more seriously hurt. So thank God they weren't. But again, I've been very, very upset with what I see as these calls for gun control. It's simply moronic. And the knee-jerk reactions from people who aren't reading the fact pattern of the case, who are saying Florida's gun laws are easy. Florida, that's why it happened in Jacksonville. No. Terrible that they're running on such a terrible premise. Because this guy got the gun in Baltimore. All right. Or Maryland, somewhere in Maryland. We don't know if it's Baltimore. Or he could have bought the gun illegally. I'm just checking more recent details on the case. And, not seeing any new information than what we already have. Now, I'm already being attacked by liberals on Twitter because I point out the guy is from Maryland. They're saying that the facts are unrelated. The facts are unrelated. And of course, Democrats in Florida are calling for more restrictive gun laws in Florida. Ridiculous. Here's a story from Politico. Here it starts from Mark Caputo. Another mass shooting in Florida re-injected the issue of firearms into state politics 2 days before the gubernatorial primaries. It also served as a stark reminder, I'm jumping around the story, that the issue of gun control won't go away in Florida politics. 2 Democratic contenders for governor, Jeff Green and Phil Levine, have used the Parkland kids, used the Parkland survivors in paid TV ads. And then David Jolly, who was a fake Republican congressman, the guy is far left, is using this tragedy to try to push more gun laws in Florida. It's simply moronic. Democrats are ghouls. They really are ghouls. Democrats in Florida know full well the fact pattern of this case. They know the guy came down from Maryland with the gun, but they're so hell-bent on ripping civil liberties from Floridians. I'm one. Ripping civil liberties from Floridians that they'll lie. They'll ignore the fact pattern. So we're going to get more into this case later in the week as more information becomes available. But I want to jump over to another guy who was a fake Republican, and that's Senator John McCain, who passed away this week. And now look, I'm torn on this one. The man died. He went through a terrible, horrible disease, brain cancer. No one should have to endure that. I feel for his family. But I don't think John McCain was a particularly good guy. I don't think John McCain cared all that much about Americans. I think John McCain cared about his agenda. And sure, we can honor his military service. We can feel for his family. And even for him that he had to endure that terrible, terrible disease. But I'm not going to be one of those phonies that's up here saying he was a maverick and an American hero and America's poorer, that John McCain has gone. No. I think John McCain was a very selfish man in the last year of his life. He held on to that Senate seat instead of giving the people's seat back to the people. He held on to that Senate seat. He thought it was his seat. And now there are calls from his cronies to give the seat to his wife, as if a Senate seat is hereditary. It's not. I think John McCain did terrible things for America. He went to bat again for his buddy Obama, and he kept Obamacare in place. Just to spite Donald Trump and conservatives. We know that John McCain is the one who gave the dossier, the Steele dossier, to certain members of federal law enforcement. He helped push this thing along. We know that John McCain was behind the IRS targeting insurgent conservative groups who were rising up against the establishment. It wasn't Democrats. It was John McCain working with the Obama administration. He was one of their best allies. So sure, we can say, and I could say, rest in peace, John McCain, and we feel for your family, which is very much what Donald Trump did. But establishment media, people like Brit Hume and others, Brit over at Fox News, well, the president has yet to say anything personally nice about McCain. Why would he? McCain hated his guts, tried to topple his presidency since day one, hell, since before he was elected. Why is anybody obligated to say anything personally nice about anybody who dies? Why? I don't understand that. I don't understand that. You can be respectful. Look, I didn't think John McCain was a particularly nice person. I think he was a terrible senator in the end. He did the bidding of Democrats. He despised insurgent conservatives. But I can say that while also saying it was a very tragic thing for his family to endure, a horrific thing for him as a human being to endure, and I wish he hadn't had to endure it. And I wish his family wasn't grieving and going through the pain they are. You don't have to, exalt somebody. You don't have to make them a deity when they die. You can be intellectually honest about who they are while being respectful. You can say that John McCain's military service was honorable while his time in the Senate was a disaster, especially in the last few years. The man didn't like liberty. Here, my buddy Jared Chambers says John McCain was open for his hatred of liberty-minded Republicans, from Tea Party to Rand Paul to Trump and Trump supporters. Why should I respect him more than he did me and those like me? Exactly. 100% spot on, Jared. Exactly. John McCain was instrumental in all of the strife we have right now in this country. So I'm not going to sit here and do what a lot of the phonies out there are doing, people that criticize them. Oh, he's the greatest man in the world, the greatest man in the world, the greatest man in the world. Look, he was a husband and a dad and a military aviator. I can respect all that and call out his career in the Senate and critique with an open eye. Jonathan Bryan has asked me to purge the anti-Semitic trolls on here. Yeah, my producers should really be doing that. I don't know where, normally they're on the ball with this. They should be deleting those questions. Hard for me to I got to bring you the show. So hopefully they'll get wind of what's going on, start banning them. I agree with you. Just ignore the trolls. Don't feed the trolls. That's why I don't call them out. And going back to McCain. So a lot of people, like I said, I'll say Cindy McCain, Geraldo Rivera. Cindy McCain should have his seat. Cindy McCain. Why? Because she was his wife? That's the people's seat. Who do the people want to fill that seat? The people of the state of Arizona, that's their seat. It's not John McCain's seat in the Senate. I don't care how long he borrowed it from the people of Arizona. Same way when they called it Ted Kennedy's seat up in Massachusetts. Oh, you're going to put a Republican in Ted Kennedy's seat. It's not Ted Kennedy's seat. Wasn't it? It was the people's seat. It's ridiculous. Jeff Flake is out. John McCain passed away. And I'll say RIP. Well, the consequence of that might be Arizona might actually now have 2 Republican senators, 2 conservative senators. But I don't think Gail Kotzman says Mrs. McCain would not be able to take his seat. Legally, she certainly can. She can certainly be appointed to that seat. When Sonny Bono of Sonny and Cher, he was a very conservative Republican from California. When he died, his wife, Mary Bono, took over his seat. Well, no one can claim a seat, Femox. No. But they want her to be appointed. Hangman John Ruth says, with Flake and McCain gone, what do I think will happen in Arizona in midterms? I think Arizona is finally going to have 2 red seats because Flake and McCain certainly were not conservatives. You know, look, you don't want to besmirch people, but I think that, like I said, we would be disingenuous. I would be not pointing out a lot of the damage McCain did to this country. John McCain wanted to see a shooting war with Russia before he died. He wanted young American troops to be killed in combat against Russian troops so that his friends in the military and defense industries could get rich and that he could die with even more power. So I'm sorry. I don't know how to come out and I can't say anything personally nice about the man. And quite frankly, I didn't hear over the years, I had dealings with his staff. They didn't even like him, many on his staff. He just wasn't known as a nice man. He was known as a very, I'm going to leave it at that. And there's a lot of misconceptions about the USS Forrestal. I will blame a lot of things on John McCain, but he had nothing to do with that. That's another moronic conspiracy theory. It's, you know, if you want to criticize anybody, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, do homework, critique with facts. Don't rely on a meme or a story spread by a website that claims to be real but isn't. Do some background research. Because it's not, I mean, he had nothing to do with that. And when you start spewing nonsense, you lose authority in your argument. People laugh at you. PD5K says, you mean memes aren't the front line for leading breaking news? Shocker, isn't it? But no, they're not. All right. Let's see. We're going to have to start blocking some trolls. Let's just hide them all. We don't even call them out. We just hide their comments. Heather Chanot starting to blame race for a troubled mental part. Well, I don't even know what you're talking about there, but the, what do you call? I think that with the Jacksonville shooting, we got to look at race. I was going to say, we don't have to look at race. We got to look at his medical history. Like I said, in the divorce record, it said he had extensive medical needs. We got to know some of those are psychological. Gun control, like I said, wouldn't have mattered. All right, so we got through that. We got through John McCain. We're going to come back to all this in your comments. The big news for me, well, a lot of big news, but a piece of big news for me are Donald Trump's approval ratings. They're steady. Americans don't care. Americans simply do not care about Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen. Don't care. Lanny Davis had to walk back his comments that Cohen had all this damning information on Donald Trump. That Cohen had all this info that Donald Trump was aware of the Trump Tower meeting. Liar Michael Cohen and his liar lawyer were caught in another lie. His liar lawyer Lanny were caught in another lie. Nobody cares. Look, I tell you this all the time. Americans care about money, safety, and family. They care about their bottom line and is their family okay? They don't care about Paul Manafort, some rich guy trying to hide money from the government 12 years ago. They don't care. The average American did not sit down this weekend, did not go into their backyard, grill up some hot dogs, sit down with their family, open a beer and say, we've really got to sit down and talk about Paul Manafort and whether or not we can still support President Trump. I know Dad's doing better. I know less money's coming out of Dad's paycheck. Dad got that bonus. We're going to Disney World next week. Getting Mom a new car. You guys can have the toys you wanted. Christmas is going to be really good this year. My company's doing great. Dad's getting a raise. But ethically and morally, this family can't support Donald Trump. This family's going to vote Democrat because Paul Manafort was convicted and he worked for Donald Trump for 4 months. I mean, no, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. The average American family they couldn't care less. Or that same dad, Michael Cohen, pled guilty. He pled guilty to paying off a porn star. No, see, nobody's having this conversation with their kids. It's not happening. That's why Trump's approval ratings are static. Americans are pragmatic people. They care about their bottom line. They don't care about this craziness, this silliness. They simply do not care at all. At all. At all. I mean, really, do you think black approval of Trump is up to 36%? Black unemployment at an all-time low. Do you think that black single mom who's now got the job she wanted, who's making a little more money, who can move out of that bad area into a nicer area, she's saying to her family, I'm going to give up this job, guys. We're going to go back to the bad neighborhood because Michael Cohen paid off Stormy Daniels. And we just can't have this lack of morality surrounding the Oval Office. No, nobody cares. The only people that care are sanctimonious, unhinged leftists and sanctimonious, fake conservative never-Trumpers. Bill Kristol and the Weekly Standard crew care on their cruise. It's just dumb. Nobody cares. People care about their bottom line. No, what that guy grilling the hot dogs and cracking the beer is saying is, God bless America. Screw you, NFL players, for taking a knee. I love this country. Thank God we finally have a president that identifies with regular Americans. In fact, the media is so unhinged about these Trump approval ratings. Let me read you a tweet, series of tweets. Let's see. I put them up this morning. All right. So Evan Siegfried he writes commentary in the New York Times, put out a tweet last night that said the number of Americans identifying as Republican has dropped over 15 million people, nearly 20% since Trump took office. That in response to a tweet from Trump that approval among Republicans is high. So Harlan Hill, I don't know if you know Harlan, but he's a surrogate for the president. He sits on the media advisory board for the re-elect campaign, and he's a commentator at Fox News. Harlan said, he tweeted, Evan, what you're saying is false. In fact, it isn't even remotely true. GOP party affiliation is up from 27% to 28% from November 2016 to today. Democratic Party affiliation is down 31% to 27% from November 2016 to today. So actually 1% more people identify as Republicans than they do Democrats. 1% more. The rest identify as independent, non-party affiliated, or third party. Democrats are very, very nervous. They truly thought Manafort and Michael Cohen were going to be the end of Trump. It was going to be the end of his presidency. Everything was going to go out in a blaze of glory. His whole presidency is going to crumble. The house of cards is going to come crumbling down. No, because Americans don't care. Look, like 7 people around Bill Clinton went to jail before the 96 election. Clinton won in a landslide. 379 electoral votes for Clinton, 159 for Bob Dole. And that was, people just simply couldn't care less. People simply couldn't care less. You do right by an American's family, they're going to be by your side. They're going to be with you. They're going to back you up. It's just the way it is. Just the nature of the beast. Just what it is. Let's see. I'm going to go start scrolling through, take some of your comments. Wow. We got a lot today. A lot of people don't like John McCain. A lot of people don't like John McCain. And look, I understand why. I mean, this wasn't a guy who seemed to represent his constituency. I've always thought it was very weird the way John McCain handled the 2008 election. I spoke to people on both his and Sarah Palin's team. I've gotten to know Sarah Palin pretty well over the years, and I really like Sarah. She's just a good person. She's a great person. She's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So knowing people on her team, knowing people that were on McCain's 2018 team, what I found out, and I feel like McCain threw the 2008 election like he wanted Obama. You find things out when you start poking around, like John McCain was in possession for a long time of the picture with Obama and Farrakhan. He knew about Obama and Farrakhan's longtime relationship. He prohibited his team from using that information. Told his team, absolutely not, you're not allowed to use it. That's problematic. He had a lot of damning opposition research on Barack Obama. He would not let his team or Palin's team use any of it. Why? If you truly wanted to win the election, if you weren't part of the cabal to have this socialist, a young globalist socialist come in and disrupt things, why did McCain effectively stop campaigning in September of 2008? Why didn't he use any of that opposition research? And why, when he got to Congress, did he often break ranks and go with Democrats? That's not a maverick. No, that's somebody who's running as an R to hold on to his seat in a red area, a red state, but really in his heart a D. His vote to keep Obamacare was terrible. Terrible. It was a terrible thing to do to the nation. Terrible thing to do to the nation. And again, like I said at the top of the show, well, middle of the top of the show, I said, I think what McCain did in his last year of life was very, very selfish. Very selfish. Holding on to that seat. Holding on to that seat. Wasn't his seat to hold on to. It was the people's seat. It was the people's seat. Now, people are talking about Cohen and impeachment. Look, if Donald Trump had anything to hide, and I truly believe this, forget that I'm a Trump supporter, forget that I often back the president up on the show. Throw all that out the window. Put all that aside. All right? The president of the United States would not have waived all privilege, personal and executive, to let Don McGahn, the White House counsel, sit with the special counsel, Robert Mueller's team, for 30 plus hours of debriefing if he had anything to hide. President of the United States would have fought much harder legally. Man's a billionaire. He could have afforded personal lawyers from now to the end of his term. He would have fought much harder to have Cohen's material kept privileged. He would have fought much harder to have Cohen's material not disclosed. He would have taken this to the Supreme Court. He's got nothing to hide. Michael Cohen has nothing on him. And I believe the liberal left is salivating, right? Salivating. They're talking about, David Pecker, the head of American Media, the parent company of the National Enquirer, he got immunity. They rated his safe. This didn't happen last week. It happened about 3 weeks, a month ago. He was given immunity to help bring down Michael Cohen, not Donald Trump. The mainstream media concocts a false timeline for you. I don't believe the president has anything to worry about. That's why he's not worried. Mueller is grasping at straws. None of this has a shred of a thing to do with Russia collusion. None of it. Let's see. So somebody wrote, every man has vices. Let me tell you this. I don't care who a president screws. I don't care who a president sleeps with or has affairs with. Don't care. Didn't really care when Bill Clinton did it. Didn't care if Obama did it. Didn't care if Bush did it. Don't care that Trump does it. If you do a good job in your job, I care. I would rather Obama have slept with 40 women and been conservative than been the most faithful man in the world and the socialist that he is. I just don't care. And that's the thing. I don't care. And the left is they have nothing. They've got nothing. What's their message? Open borders, crime. Let me grab your guns. Let me take money out of your paycheck. Let me impose socialized health care on you. And let's make the United States communist again. That's their message. So all they've got are these histrionics, these temper tantrums. Oh my God, Donald Trump is terrible. Oh my God. Somebody doesn't like my t-shirt. Happy Infidel Foxes. John is wearing a very cheesy t-shirt. No, I'm not. And this story. Let's see. Mysterious Stranger says John McCain was a war hawk, a puppet of the military-industrial complex. That's where you're wrong. He was a war hawk. The military-industrial complex was his puppet. McCain was the gatekeeper. His committee votes mattered. He was their guy. He wasn't a puppet. They were his stooge. They were his bitch. He ran things with an iron fist. Don't underestimate McCain. Let's see. Pro-Trumpers understand the hypocrisy and corruption by Dems, the coup, and the goal to take down a president by Patty Willing. Yeah, that's exactly it. But I think it's more than just pro-Trumpers. I think it's independents realize that as well. Right-leaning independents and true down-the-middle independents. A very close friend is a right-down-the-middle independent, and she says, this is such nonsense. She's voting for Trump again, and she's voting Republican in the midterms because she's upset with the Dems. Now, that all said, I do think we're in danger of losing the House in the midterms unless something turns around very quickly. I really do. I think we're in danger of losing the House in the midterms. This weirdo is still annoyed about my shirt. Poor thing. Well, I don't know. Let's see. Who didn't like my shirt? Somebody else. Okay. Patty Willing said the entire Mueller investigation was begun in a fake dossier. Look, Mueller should be shut down for 150 reasons. Okay. More Power says about Jacksonville. Where was the event security? Were there no guards at the door? Were there no guards scanning people? Why? We don't live that way in America. You're going to a video game tournament. You don't get scanned through metal detectors. This is not some dystopian communist country. No, we don't live that way. What are we going to do? Start scanning people every time they go to a building? I don't want to live that way. Benjamin Franklin, those who would sacrifice essential liberty for a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Remember that. Let's see. Let's keep going here. Aha. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, exactly. PD5K says, sir, you need to check your joystick. Exactly. Happy Infidel Fox doesn't like that I wear a t-shirt. He says he might as well show up at a wedding wearing a t-shirt. Well, that's really a dumb analogy. That's really dumb. Conservative Russians at $20. Thank you very much. Says, I am awesome. You're awesome too, Conservative Russian. Really, really awesome. Thanks very much. No, wearing a t-shirt in my studio is wearing a t-shirt to a wedding. It's just silly. Silly. Gun-free zones don't work, Linda, Arizona says. Yeah, look, gun-free zones don't work. They just don't. You know, I love trolls, but some of the trolls are Elmer Santiago's 84. All right, Elmer. Sounds good. And for those of you who don't know what that means, Elmer does. He is 84 at this location. Yeah, see, the funny thing with trolls is your comments have to be clever for me to engage. You know? And sadly, you guys are not. You guys are lacking, man. Oh, I like this comment from Panchudo. Thoughts on the fake Mexican Beto? Oh, you mean, what is it? Robert Francis O'Rourke? Robert Francis O'Rourke, the Democrat with a criminal record running for Senate in Texas, who's calling himself Beto to try to woo the Hispanic vote. Lucas, thank you for liking the tats. I got to finish this off. Every one of them has a little meaning. Yeah, this Beto O'Rourke is, I mean, this guy, I can't even take this moron. And by the way, Texans should not be lulled into a false sense of security. This guy is like Ocasio-Cortez, right? This guy is a far leftist. Far leftist. He is not some moderate Dem. This guy is not Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania. This guy's a bad guy. He is a far, far left guy. Now, I've heard two schools of thought on what's going on in Texas, and I'll probably do more on that later in the week. Two schools of thought. One, I've spoken to people inside the Cruz campaign. They tell me they're feeling pretty good. Things are okay. Then I spoke with someone who had lunch with Senator Cruz last week, said Cruz is a little nervous about this guy. Cruz needs to get out there, retail campaign a little bit better. Retail campaign a little bit better. And needs to go on the attack against Robert Francis O'Rourke. Black Nation Building says, will you be okay when Trump erases term limits? Well, Trump can't erase term limits. You don't know how our system works. That would require a constitutional amendment. And that would require 2/3 of state legislatures to approve. Trump unilaterally and on his own has no authority to do that. Yeah. Hangman John Root says there's more Johns here than an airport bathroom. Yes. The British Perspective says Twitter is giving hundreds of thousands of QFD strikes to conservative voices. Yep, that's true. Well, the midterms are not at risk only because of Twitter. They're at risk because the mainstream media is 95% against Donald Trump. Got all of them once. Is Lanny Davis backpedaling on all the BS from last week he was spouting? He is. And what got all of them means is Lanny Davis said that Michael Cohen had information to give the special counsel on the Trump Tower meeting. But he doesn't. So he backpedaled on that. CNN still has not retracted their report. That's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem. They has simply will not ever admit the truth. They won't admit the truth. M46539612 says, what is that watch? A Breitling? Yeah, it's a Breitling Super Avenger. Yep. I've had this watch for about 14 years. I have others, but I just love this one. It's big. I wear this one more than any other. Yep. Let's see. All right. Iman377 says, I'm not trolling. Can trans people be truly Republican? It's a good question. I mean, yeah. I think you can. I think if you're an economic voter who doesn't care about social issues, if you're trans and you vote Republican, then you're voting Republican for the right reason. Blainer Games donated. My wife and I were both Democrat, her black, me white. After a while, we decided Trump is who we are voting for next term. So I'm hearing this story quite a bit. Blainer, why? Why? Are you voting? And thanks for the donation, by the way, very much. Why? Is it a, what am I looking for? Economic thing. Are you voting with your wallet? Are you voting on certain social issues? I'd love to know. I'd love you to give me the answer to that. Let's see. What else we got here? All righty. Honest Abe says, I'll be thankful that Trump can handle 8 years of this BS. I think he thrives on it. To be honest with you, I think a lot of this, Trump thrives on it. Okay, Iman377 says, I own a business. That's why I voted for Trump. That's what I'm hearing a lot. Owen Young says, some schools have already introduced electronic registration via student cards. I love that idea. Yeah, I think one of the things we need, school safety, I'm all for armed personnel in schools. I always tell you, let's model arming teachers after the Federal Flight Deck Officer program that we enacted after 9/11, where we arm pilots. There are very specific protocols. They work. They work. But we also need to centralize access points and have swipe cards for students. And Jonathan Bryant just said, it wasn't Jonathan Bryant, I'm sorry. John Kay said, school in Selma, North Carolina will introduce access cards for teachers. I think it's a great idea. Sean Wingfell says, John Cardillo keeps saying he's me. Tell that guy identity theft is no joke. It affects millions of Americans yearly. That was good. All right, let's see. Most liberals tend to ad hominem when they get more than 2 sentences into a debate. Yeah, because they don't have anything substantive to come back with. That's the problem. That is the problem. I want to see if my buddy Blainer explained why he and his girl switched from Dem to Republican. Let's see. Lucas Gabriel, so I was Democrat. I walked away. I'm voting for Republican governor in Connecticut this November. I don't want a socialist state. Oh, God help you, though. You still have Dick Blumenthal as your senator. I dealt with that moron when he was attorney general of Connecticut. I think there's something wrong with that guy. He is just, yes. I could do a whole show on Blumenthal and his issues. Poor Elizabeth Warren. We're going to be talking about her more next week. Or even later this week, maybe. Let's see. Blainer Games. Okay, so he says, I joined the Navy, so my wallet doesn't follow much. But the hatred of the left and the facts are so skewed, we ignore media now and look at policies and what he's changed. Well, A, thank you very much for your service. And B, I think you're really indicative of most Americans. You and your wife are indicative of most Americans. Good policies transcend race. They transcend party lines. I think most Americans just want common sense policies that are better for their families. But thank you so much for the input. Thanks for the donation. And most importantly, thanks for your service, man. Really appreciate that. All right. Pat Mack says, Chopper Cortez could trim back the trees with their teeth, save the forests. I think you just really upset the environmental lobby. Got to be careful. You really upset the environmental lobby. Bigwig says, I live in Harlem. What can I do? Not much in New York City at this point, my friend. Not much in New York City. Sean Wingfield asked me, who would I like to see in politics that isn't currently involved? I don't know. It's a really good question. It's a really, really good question. I think more business people that have been common sense problem solvers. That's what I like about Trump. That's what I also like about business people, Sean, going into politics after success in business. They're not political ideologues, number one. Number two, they're problem solvers. They look at the fastest way to get from A to B, the simplest way to get from A to B, and the quickest way to solve the problem that the nation is having getting from A to B. And 98% of the time, that solution is a conservative policy. And so when business people are thrown into roles as politicians, they tend to be conservative, not because of a blind ideology, but because the conservative policy tends to be the most commonsensical and the easiest path from problem to solution. And so that's what I'd like to see. So not so much names, but the type of people I'd like to see in the game. Let's see. Caitlyn Jenner is a Republican. Yeah, I hope still we need as many votes as we can get. Tippy Bear says we need more good guys with guns, not more metal detectors. Exactly. Exactly. My name is Love. Nice to meet you too. Yeah, look, I mean, we have, like I said, we've got the model in place, right? So after 9/11, if you don't know what the FFDO program is, after 9/11, obviously on the morning of 9/11, the cockpit doors were breached. So there were different security protocols put into place. We see the moronic TSA screening, but really more immediately. And what was most effective is the armed cockpit doors, armored, steel cockpit doors. And then they enacted the FFDO program, the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program. So basically, pilots are allowed to carry and be armed inside the cockpit. And their law enforcement, their federal law enforcement inside the cockpit. And thereby, if somebody were to breach the door, they could draw that gun and kill the bad guy. There's a training program in place. They train with the federal air marshals at law enforcement training facilities. The protocols are there. Florida's a law that did a lot of things wrong that we passed after Parkland did call for a training program for teachers. They just haven't appropriated any money for it. It was similar to the FFDO program. But we could have a nationwide program to arm teachers that mirrors the FFDO program. And my voice is always messed up in the morning. Also, when you go an hour straight and talk, it tends to do it. But I think there are, my point is, there are architectures, there are frameworks in place for us to arm teachers and have a model. We're not doing this blind. Yeah, 3D printed guns people are talking about. 3D printed guns do require metal parts. I mean, you get one round out of one if it was totally plastic. Nick at Night asks, isn't there usually a U.S. Marshal on most flights now? No. FAMs, Federal Air Marshals, completely different agency than the U.S. Marshal Service. U.S. Marshal Service falls under Department of Justice. They do fugitive apprehension. FAMs, Federal Air Marshals, fall under the FAA. They handle security on flights. So two very different disciplines. And not on every flight. We just don't have enough air marshals. It's not that big of an agency. They do threat assessment, risk assessment, and then they deploy where they need to. Linda, Arizona says, drink some coffee. That's exactly what I'm doing. Exactly what I'm doing. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Kay says, I work at a private daycare and almost every one of our teachers conceal carry. Thank God. Thank God. Smart. Very, very smart. Matt Gauthier says, bring back the Winchester with the powder and the iron ball. You want a cap and ball? Well, I don't think it was a Winchester. It was a Colt. Winchester wasn't big in the pistol game. That was Colt and Remington. Winchester were cartridge lever action rifles. They and Henry. So I've got Winchester Model 94 upstairs. Maybe I'll bring it down and show you guys on one of the shows. John K says they still make bore-loaded rifles. Yes, they're black powder, they're called. They still make them. In fact, call them muzzle loaders, black powder and muzzle loaders. And certain states have muzzle loading season. It actually comes before gun season, typically after bow season. So muzzle loading season is a big game. I'm not a muzzle loading guy. I'm a gun collector, but I'm all cartridge, more modern stuff. Let's see. We're talking about any more on muzzle loaders? Let's see. Murdering mass amounts of people doesn't seem logical to me, PD5K says, but hey, to each his own. I don't know in which context you mean that. So let me know and maybe we can discuss it. Buy a lower and complete the rifle yourself. Yeah, I like to do that. It's enjoyable for me. I'm actually building 2 AR pistols now with lowers. All right, Paul Thompson. On one of the shows, I'll bring down the Winchester 94. They're cool. It's a fun rifle to shoot. Well, somebody, Patty Willing, saying that Yamiche Alcindor on MSNBC said that if teachers are allowed to carry guns, they may shoot minority students. In other news, this Yamiche Alcindor is a moron. So, Clint Bronze is living in Stockton, California, where they're experimenting with universal basic income. What can he do? Not much. Move out of Stockton. Your liberals are going to ruin you. James Avery says people now make their own guns. Yeah, not really. Not really. You know, you still need metal parts, and they're not as robust. You're not going to have, you're not going to, make a gun that's going to get 5,000 rounds, 10,000 rounds. Tippy Bear says, as a concealed weapons holder and a frequent volunteer at schools, it bothers me that she has to leave her gun at home and can't protect kids. All kids while volunteering. Yeah, I know. It's really ridiculous. I can't tell you how many guys and girls I work with in the NYPD that in retirement are teachers. Did 20 years on the job, 25 years on the job, some like me, 10, 15 years, retired early. They can't carry guns to protect the kids that they used to be called to come protect with their guns. It's just dumb. Dumb. John K. says, fact, CCW holders commit crimes at a lower rate than police. They commit crimes at a lower rate than pretty much anybody. Gab says there need to be an armed trained person at every school. No excuses. 100% agree. All right. Engine Kid 88 asks a question. What is better, open carry or concealed carry? I think if you're a private citizen, conceal carry. Don't give a bad guy the jump. You don't make it's. I don't like the way some open carry. I want open carry to be legal, but I think too many people use it in a way that is counterproductive. For me personally, I would never open carry. I want the element of surprise. Right now, I'm not going and catching bad guys anymore. If I've got to draw my gun, it's because I'm like being robbed. I'm at an ATM. I'm in a store that's being robbed. I'm at the gas pump. Last thing I want is for the bad guy to see my gun and shoot me. Walk up behind me, see my gun and shoot me. Got all of them. Give us a donation. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Bosniard 24 says open carry, scared a guy to death. No, you're not scaring anybody. They're going to shoot you first. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. You want the element of surprise, because the minute they see that gun, their eye is on you the entire robbery. You'll never have a chance. Never have a chance. Or they'll just walk up behind you and shoot you in the head. Take everything you own. Shooter the Fox says, I built my own AR-10. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I like building my own. I get the component groups I want. It's the same price. I set it up the way I want. Much better. Much better. All right, guys. Well, the hour flew by. We're at the end of the show. Be back with you guys tomorrow morning. Going to pick some hot topics. Might have some additional information on Jacksonville. I'm sure something nutty will happen overnight. Thanks for watching. See you in the morning.